Hi, this is lesson 7. We're going to do some more note reading today. In personal lessons, this would probably have started in your first or second lessons after we learned all the notes on the guitar. What we want to do here is start to apply the notes to the staff a little bit more, expanding on what we learned from Jingle Bells, but learning some of the rules now. When we look at guitar, there's so many different things we can do. We've learned some notes just by playing on one string, playing little songs based upon the markings on the frets. We've learned all the string names. We've learned how to play from tab, playing fret by fret, playing some rock songs on the low end of the guitar, turned those into some power chords. On the high end, we're starting to learn all of our open position chords. We've gone from G to G7 to C to D7, A minor. We got to E minor the first time and then realized with small adjustments we could turn it into E majors and E7s. So we want all of these things sort of ongoing at once, trying to put your tentacles out and figure out all the different things about the guitar that you can do. These are all different aspects that we want. We want to be able to strum chords, play melodies, read notes, do all of these different things that lend to the musicality of the instrument. Everybody will specialize and have their own favorites as they go, but you need to be introduced to everything as soon as you can. As I said before, I work from Hal Leonard's book most of the time. Any book with notes will do, but this one lays them out fairly well in a nice order. Here what I've done is drawn your keyboard again. What we found out is that notes are read from left to right on a keyboard. They're going to be ascending. So if I have an A here, the very next note is a B, then a C, then a D, E, F, G, and A again. And we go so on and so on. Those notes are ascending in pitch, and they're going to ascend in our musical system for reading notes as well. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, going up. If you thought of a staircase and A was here, B would be the next, C, D on the next step, E on the next, F, and G. For fun, what I've often done with people, in a group situation especially, is draw one of these staircases, and I don't put the letters on, I just say, okay, this one's A. What's on the next step? And they, well, B. So we can actually read notes by just going up and down the steps. Quickly, if I saw that, and if I told you that this was A, it would not be very hard for you to go, if this is A, what's this? B. A, B. A, B, C. B, C. A, B, C. A, B, C, D. D, C, D, C, B, just by comparing heights. And that's one of the ways that we'll read notes when we're reading on a musical staff. Part of it is reading the flow of the notes, comparing them as they go from high to low. If we saw only a couple of notes, we could do this quite easily without a lined staff. If I was telling you to play this note over and over again, and I said that's an A, that would be no challenge to you. If I said, okay, well, we have A's and B's. Now I have one lower, one higher. If I went along and drew those, you'd have no problem. A, B, A, B, A, B, B. I could even increase that. If you were sitting with me, I'd have you answering these. Let's say this is A, and I draw that. You see it's a little higher. You go, that's a B. Okay, so A and B, and a little higher. C. Okay, I can do that. A, B, C, B, A. That's a little harder. Well, it looks like you jumped, so it must be a C. B, A, D. If I start to see notes like this far apart, you're not going to be able to tell which is which. This is actually very similar to how music started out. They just indicated height and pitch. They could use different symbols or just different heights. Once I see this and they start getting too far apart, that's getting too hard to tell. But if I had a line through there, I could tell. The note below the line is A, the note on the line is B. Now I don't need them right beside each other to tell. There's A and B and C. And A and C and B. C. A little higher than C. Okay, well, let's get a line through there, and there's our D. So they develop a system where they allocate a line or a space to each of these notes. A up to the next note on the line would be a B, up to the next note in a space is a C, up to the next note is a D. As the system's developed, any number of lines have been attempted, but the human brain can really sort things out to about 5 to 7 degrees quite easily without having any trouble, without having to count. One experiment I'll do with people is I'll flash them a number of fingers and ask them to tell me how many there are. So same thing if I showed you dice. The reason dice work so easily is we have patterns that we can recognize. Obviously 5, obviously 4. We don't have to count those, we just recognize them. Same thing with our lines. We can easily tell notes apart by where they are in the lines. We've got 5 lines. You can tell if the note's on a middle line or a bottom line, second space, top space. It's easy to distinguish them without counting lines. I don't know how many I just did. If there were 8 though, you would never be able to tell which one that is without counting. So they've narrowed it down to 5, a number that makes sense visually. People who read music well can read it faster than we can read words. If we see our 5 lines, I will just tell you that A is right here on the second space. If A is second space, B must be on the line above it. We're just going to do the alphabet. So you have A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. E, F, and G were played on our first string. B, C, and D on our second. Those are the ones we used in Jingle Bells. You can remember that A's in the second space there. We also have the treble clef, also called the G clef. It's a stylized letter G. At first it was just a little G that they put here, and then with flourishes it built up to this, and then this treble clef. It circles around this line here, which is our G note. Thus it's called the G clef. What they say is that it fixes the G note on that line. If G is there, the next note is A, and you get started. There's all kinds of little tricks to remember these. One is to do it alphabetically like this. The other would be to use those little mnemonics, every good boy deserves fudge, or the word face. I've had students tell me they don't want to learn those. They want to just recognize the note where it is. But these are really quite vital to get started. I've had students often sit and look at a note, and I'll ask them what they're doing, and they'll say, I'm thinking of that note. So I want to know what technique they're using. Well, what are you doing? I'm thinking about it. How? Well, I'm trying to remember. So they have nothing to grasp to. They don't have anything to get started to remember it. So then I'll ask them sometimes, is it on a line or a space? Well, it's on a line. Well, how do you remember lines? Every good boy does, oh, okay, it's the D. Every good boy deserves fudge. So sometimes you need those to get started. Once again, these 5 lines are not your guitar strings. Our guitar strings were notes, Eddie ate dynamite, goodbye Eddie, the open strings, E, A, D, G, B, and E. These lines are just telling you the code. We're setting these notes on a staff and you figure out their names. Then you can apply them to any instrument, your voice, a piano, anything else. So an E would be, where is my E? There's an E right there. This D could be this D. Those aren't strings, obviously, neither are these. So this is every good boy deserves fudge. This F is the F we were using in Jingle Bells. On the spaces, we have another set of notes. They're in between these. So what letter comes between E and G in this space? An F. Notice I have 2 different Fs. We have one in a low octave, one in a high. We already talked about this A coming after the G, so this is A. After the B, but before the D, is a C. And then up here in the top space is E. So in the spaces, you have the word face. They rhyme, so you can remember that. Again, if somebody's sitting there looking at a note, I'll just say, is it in a line or a space? As soon as they say space, they should get the word face. If they don't, I'll ask them, well, what rhymes with space? Face. Oh, okay, F-A-C-E, and I can find my note again. Once you find a note, then you don't have to continue to do this all the time. If I can find my D, and then I see a note a little higher, I know it's E. A note a little lower, I know it's C. So you've got your relative system of reading, but you also have something like this that's absolute, that you can just fix that note in the middle of the staff wherever you need it without reference to anything else. If you're using the Hal Leonard book, which I recommend, they will have this all described for you. Every good boy deserves fudge, face. You've got your bar lines, the rudiments that we've spoken about earlier. On page 6, they introduce the notes of the first string. On page 7, you have some examples to play. Those are just using E, F, and G on the first string. Very likely that's easy for you. If you're very young, we would probably spend a couple of weeks on that. If not, you could do the B string at the same time, string 2, B, C, and D. This particular book is ancient, so your examples won't be exactly like this. The way page 6 works is they've got these little pictures of your guitar. It's vertical again, so the nut is here and the head of the guitar is up here. This open string is your E, and they will show you that E is written in the top space. Spaces F-A-C-E. So open string, top space, and there's an E there. First fret is your F note, written on the top line from Every Good Boy Deserves Fudge. And then you have an example where we'll play Fs down here. There's your G. Third fret on the first string, it sits up on top of the staff. And here's some Gs. Notice again, these do not at all represent those strings. You're going to be tricked into thinking so, because you know E is open. This one's in a space. Isn't space sort of like open? It's not. Fretted notes are not necessarily notes on lines. Open strings are not necessarily notes in spaces. Those have no correlation at all, even though you'll continue to be fooled by it as time goes. There are examples then on that page. We have E, F, G, F, E in 4/4 time. So each of these is a whole note, and they get 4 beats. In the next example, they divide those bars into half. They'll put 2 E's. There's still these empty circles, but now they have stems. These are half notes because they get half the bar. Each one gets 2 of those beats. They're going to mix it up here. I'll put 2 G's, but in the book they don't. 2 F's there. So half notes and a whole note at the end. I'll leave you with that for now. We can move on later on and do some more of the examples. I'll play through them a little bit, but I want to end this now. Hopefully this will give you a nice start on the book. What I would do with it is practice each line. I always write in everybody's book, name the notes. I'll ask them to name the notes before they play. E, E, F, F, G, G, F, F, E. Then name the notes as you play. Sometimes I write in the book, play and say. Always do that. Make sure you're naming the notes as you go. It's going to be very easy to compare these 3. One's lower, one's a little higher, one's a little higher. And that's all you'll be doing is up, down in your head. As you learn the next string, you'll be able to hang on to that system a little bit. As you learn a third string, that system falls apart. And you have to know their names. You have to be able to find, there's a G, there's a B, F, A, C, E. Use all your systems to get them. We'll memorize a couple as we go. Thanks again, and I will hopefully see you soon.